coming to you from the Portrait Masters 2022 in Phoenix, Arizona. We just finished up with day 2 of the expo, and I have 2 of my favorite people in the world sitting with me right now, Nate and Teresa Peterson. Thank you both for being with us here today.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Matt.
See, Nate's being nice to begin with here. We'll see what happens eventually. So Nate and Teresa, for those of you that do not know who they are located in New Richmond, Wisconsin. They have a beautiful studio specializing in high school seniors and families. Why don't you guys, in your own words, talk about just a little bit of your history just to kind of fill people in. We'll let Nate take the wheel on that.
All right. So I worked in the printing industry and would do anything to have a job on an Apple Macintosh computer. That's basically my high school nerddom turned into a career. So I went to school for graphic design, actually, not photography. I took all the photography classes there and then got a internship turned career at a magazine printer that similar in size to White House, but it was exclusively printed trade magazines for different associations and everything. Okay. So I was the Mac IT guy and then part-time designer a little bit for them. And then that eventually, with 9/11 happening and things the advertising industry went down, and that started to disintegrate would be the best way to put that. So
I've heard you use that word before.
Yeah, they didn't lop off the whole gangrene leg. They would just kind of let the whole body disintegrate was the way I described it. I'm sorry,
a little
that
graphic.
got really graphic.
We apologize for that description, everybody.
But so then what that freedom allowed me to do, or that time, was in my spare time develop my own business, and that started off as NP Design. It was a graphic design thing, but it's kind of hard to sell graphic design in 2006 when people didn't really know what that was. Mm-hmm. There was no Canva or any of that, and now I'm glad I'm not a graphic designer by trade either. Yeah. But it started out with some sports photography, photographing some friends that played hockey. And then that led to taking the hockey team pictures, getting asked and daring to do that. And then that led to senior pictures. And then a good friend of mine came up to me and kind of tapped me on the shoulder and welcomed me to the industry and said, if you want to learn this, why don't you go down to this thing called After Dark, and why don't you join the local PPA chapter? And all of a sudden, like in a year, we call it kind of our whirlwind tour. Like I went on this thing, and then Teresa was like, hey, I want to come to one of these too. Mm-hmm. And we saw Dane Sanders one year at WPPI, and he finished his whole, what does it mean to go all in on something? And we had goosebumps. We were crying. We're like, this is it. This is the next phase of life. And ever since then, we're basically... Now we teach business, we teach sustainable photography business ownership, and love what we do and work with high school seniors is our primary thing. We photograph volume sports for high school teams. That's our main marketing channel. Yep. And then in the spare time around that, we photograph commercial work and families and pets. And that's about everything.
Well, that was easy, so thanks for joining us, folks. But you guys have a good story. We have a complex story. You've gone through a lot of transitions where, Teresa was in the corporate world for a number of years.
For 18 years, I worked in customer service for a manufacturing company. Good paying job, great benefits. I think that's part of the reason why I stayed as long as I did, because as most people know, when you're an entrepreneur, those benefits don't come free. So,
right. That's exactly right.
So we had to wait a long time and kind of make sure all of our ducks were in a row before I could finally leave my job and come aboard with Nate full time.
And what year was that, Teresa, that you came on?
February 2016, but who's keeping track?
It was the second best day of Nate's life.
In fairness,
I wondered where she was going to go with that.
It was trying because she was helping me outside of her, beyond her 40 hours working for her career. Then she would help me nights, afternoons, weekends, things like that. And she basically said, we got to do this. And it was hard for me to let go.
It was to a point where we got to do something. We either need to hire somebody, because I couldn't function anymore. I mean, you can only work so many hours in a day, and I wasn't giving 100% to either. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, okay, do we hire somebody, or do we just
and it was
like
hard to
Dane
grasp
Sanders says, jump off the cliff and go all in? And that's kind of what we did. So
And it was hard to grasp that here in my mind, we were giving up this corporate wage and the benefits and everything, not thinking by her joining, we're going to grow
Right.
beyond that. And we wouldn't be what we are if that never happened.
Yeah. So in 2016, then, you guys were in the spot that you're in now. You've been in the building for how long?
Well, that's something we haven't addressed yet. We live in our commercial studio. And
You do?
for those that haven't heard of us or seen some of the behind the scenes stuff, I left my career in 2011
Yep.
and was full time renting our building for a couple years. Then we bought it, started renovating it, and built a apartment in it, and moved in 2015. A year later, Teresa quit her job because we no longer had our home mortgage and things like that. So that was kind of the final straw that made that all possible.
So there was a lot of give and take in that 11 through 16. Like you were figuring a lot of stuff out.
And we bought a frame shop too.
Right.
And moved that in.
Because we had nothing better to do than to buy another business.
Yeah.
Right.
Why
Let's
not?
just
Why
jump on
not?
board with
Once you
that,
label
too.
yourself entrepreneur, it goes to your head and you just start thinking you're going to buy up everything and start every business. But
And every light and every background
Yeah,
and every camera
yeah.
and every lens. And
that hasn't stopped.
yeah,
Yep.
well, it keeps you going. So that's good. So in your business, break that down. So is seniors the majority of what you're doing right now?
Seniors is about 50% of the annual revenue,
Okay.
gross revenue.
Yep.
Sports is about a third of the annual gross revenue, and the rest is that other.
All the
third.
others.
Yeah,
little
which is actually kind of surprising because I don't say we're a volume photography studio because I really don't want to photograph like 400-person Little League teams. I really just want the high school teams because that is basically how we market to seniors.
Right.
And we actually, it's become such a big part of our revenue. And when people ask us, how do you get so many seniors? It's because of that sports photography. That's how we're getting the kids we're getting. So it's like getting paid to market. It's a
Right.
beautiful thing. So.
Yeah. And I know, Nate, you said when you were at Sync, there were so many people that were asking you about that specific thing. And you're even contemplating maybe building a program around that because literally
Yeah.
you were making money from your marketing while you're marketing.
We don't buy mailing lists. We don't like take out newspaper ad. We don't pay for Facebook ads. It's all from the sports teams that we photograph. So
Exposure to
yeah.
3,000 kids. When we say we don't do volume, the high school teams a football team has 100 kids roughly, and a golf team has 10, and we'll do everybody in between there. Volleyball teams are about 55. So all of that adds up. We do 3 seasons worth of that, plus a few odds and ends throughout the summer or some hockey leagues and stuff like that. But that's exposure to a lot of families. And what the program I was thinking about is there's like this natural stigma among photographers. Well, you can't be a fine art, high-end portrait studio if you're giving yourself away at volume. Yeah, you can. And
Yeah.
if you give yourself away at volume on a premium volume, like have it a little more than what the market around you is going for, but also bring a better quality to that. The compliment we get the most is, oh, if we lose a team, let's say, somebody comes up and says, I can't believe we lost you because you guys did such a better job and now they look like whatever. And people say, well, you do such a better job on it. And I say, now imagine if that was just you for 3 hours instead of all 100 of you.
Right.
And that's where people just really see that quality difference and then can imagine that if they get their own time, that's where the more luxury portrait studio kicks in.
Yeah, and you're in a market where you are known and you're visible. It's not when you're photographing the sports teams. I'm sure now with the time that you've been in business, they know your name, they know who you are,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and then that's cutting the ice or whatever you want to say to begin with. And then once you photograph and they see the quality of that, then it's like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And for everybody listening that hasn't had the pleasure of meeting Nate and Teresa before, when they say they do seniors, they're not doing an hour session or even maybe a 2-hour session. We're talking a whole grand experience.
Yeah.
Where you are very vested into telling the story of these high school seniors and not just making a beautiful picture of them standing in the field.
Absolutely. Not that there's anything wrong with that, and not that we don't still create those image, but our whole tagline is we want to tell the story of your senior year. So that's really our catch. Embrace, what do you say? Embrace
who you are.
Yes.
And that's so that comes from like the kids that are not our stereotypical athletes that we photograph. That's a good majority of who we work with, but we'll get Marvel comic fans, and this one, my favorite senior ever, was he didn't think highly of himself because he was a nerd, and he thought that I wouldn't enjoy photographing him. And I'm like, dude, you are me in high school. Like I would love to do this because I would love to have had what I'm going to give you.
Right.
And that's kind of where it all comes from for me, is to show them how great they are as they are. And and typical, our session base is 3 hours and you get an album with it. Our average session is 5 hours this year. So people can increase it for an hourly rate. And
that's awesome. And by following you on Instagram and knowing you like I do, I mean, I see you, pushing yourself and pumping yourself into these sessions. It's not just the image to you.
It's not easy, but no, it's you do what you have to do. And it's the giving those kids, I always tell the photography industry that I'm not going to teach anything about the quality of a photo. I don't think I'm God's gift to photography, but the experience that comes with it will certainly help somebody look at an image and love it if they were there and remember the moment it was taken and everything. Yep. And I think so many of us as creatives or as perfectionists or whatever it be, never think we're there. In fact, it's hard for me to take a compliment on my actual photography.
Syndrome.
Yeah. I feel like, my stuff is nothing that great. But when you bring the experience with it, I would tell anybody that has that same feeling as me, when you create that memory with it, it's so priceless to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we hear that a lot, like as people are looking through their images during the order session. It's funny, like mom is like, oh, and that's right when, this happened, or that's when this, like, so they're looking at the picture, but they're really looking at a memory is what they're looking at.
Absolutely. And just to refer to, I think it was a conversation that we all had last night. You said, do you like nature? Do you like it like trees, or do you like a tree? Yeah. Or how did you put that?
Yeah.
So I always ask
trees? Yeah.
Are trees trees?
That's a great story.
Yeah. So people will say like, all right, I will say, Matt, are you an indoor guy or an outdoor guy? And that's just because mom's going to want something traditional. So should we do this indoor, outdoor, or both? And then what is outdoor? We break that into, is there a tree in it? Is it kind of woods? Is it a park? Is it a field? Is it water? What is it? And then when we get to the part that you like nature, you like to go out on trails. All right, are trees trees? And that means, do you want to go to where I know the light's going to be good? Something on that effect. You're not from this area. You weren't born and raised here. A tree is a tree. Or does grandpa have some land that you have memories of? I just had a kid. We mentioned this exact story, and the kid goes, oh, like where on grandpa's back 40 where we got my first deer. Like, can we go out there? And I'm like, yeah. And the mom it's funny. She's like, oh, we don't have to take the time to go there. That's like 15 minutes away.
I know, but like I heard that story, like that tugs at my heartstrings, and that's not even my kid. Like, I'm like, oh, that would be perfect. Like,
but here you had a guy session, which I think we do a majority of boys, and he was somewhat disinterested at first. This mom was encouraging him to do this. Yeah. But the second you start breaking the ice and start saying, I want to do this for you, this is all about yours. Some guys will say, yeah, trees are trees. But this guy, once that popped into his mind, he was all in, like, let's go. And then mom kind of said, let's maybe not. And I said, no, we've got him right now. This will get you everything else you want too.
Right.
His expression and just how he feels on that day at that time will be 100 times different and better than had we just gone to a tree is a tree.
Right.
So
for 15 extra minutes, that's going to make it so much better.
Yeah. And I love that's how you approach that. And the albums and the wall art and that's the byproduct of what you're actually selling, in my opinion. No, you're creating this wonderful experience story. He'll never forget that. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. Mm-hmm. I don't think you guys would.
I'll tell you what I haven't said to anybody. I went to my mentor hosted a little art gathering, and I was fortunate enough to go, and they had a speaker. She's a painter from New York named Alyssa Monks. And if you look her up, She's like the 16th most influential female painter in the world. And she's so deep. Everything she talked, like the experience of being in a room with her and talking with her was one of the deepest things I've ever experienced. And she got to the location, casually was asking me, so what do you do? And I kind of explained what we talk about. Like, I photograph seniors, we do this. And she repeated back to me after I had told her, she goes, you give these kids your undivided attention, a space to be seen and heard, and then you mirror that back to them through your photography. And I went, whoa.
Yeah, I just got chills. Like, that's seriously.
That's good.
There are too many of us, and I don't want to slam, but we're all about creating these cool pictures and stuff. And even it's more superficial. Like, mine is pure sentimental. It's 100% authentic. And you don't pretend to be that. You have to be willing to go for it. And I guess that's our secret weapon.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would agree.
Now, as the money person, like, that does all, like, I love it that Nate's heart is in this, but it also is a very valuable commodity, and parents are totally endeared to that. So if you think making pretty pictures is going to make you a ton of money and being sentimental is not, you're wrong, because being sentimental, I think, will trump over pretty pictures any day of the week.
And I make pretty pictures.
You do. You do.
Nate's getting defensive over here. So as long as you brought it up, Teresa, and I mean, literally for everybody that's with us here now, we could sit here and talk for days.
We've talked like for 3 days straight.
We've talked for 3 days straight already. I do want to move on to another piece of this conversation. So the people that I'm sitting here talking with are highly decorated, very vested in business, very wise when it comes to education, platforms, to everything. If you need a mentor, these are the people you want to talk to.
We have him so full.
Yeah, I'm snowballed all the way. So White House is honored to have Nate and Teresa spending time with us in our trade show booth here at the Portrait Masters. And this is the first time that you guys have done that.
Yeah.
Now, I come from a specific experience where I used to travel with the lab when I had my studio, and I had the honor of traveling with Mike and Chris and Tim, as White House was growing and going to countless events and sharing the same experience that you guys have right now. So I think it's really cool after 2 days of doing this, and we literally left the trade show 20 minutes ago. I would love to have your feedback one at a time, whoever wants to go first, at what you actually think what do you think you're doing here for the attendees? You had some very interesting insights about this a few minutes ago, Nate, about, you're talking about products and you're showing people everything. Or maybe it was Teresa, you were saying this. But what you're really teaching is, what is that? What are you helping with here?
So first off, I want everybody that goes to a trade show to walk up to their booth and say, I'm so glad you're here, and you guys work so hard at putting all the stuff together and making your booth look so cute and the setup, and that is a lot of hard work. So kudos to every vendor that's ever in a booth. I appreciate you.
Amen.
No, I kind of thought we'd be in the booth just chatting with, maybe seeing old friends and kind of talking about some of the products we use in our studio. And it's a total 180 from what I thought. It's really, people come in and yes, they're asking about products, but they're really not asking about products. And it kind of goes along with your own business. They're there for pictures, but they're really more there for the experience and what you're going to give them back. And a lot of people come in the booth and they're asking things, but then they're asking for help either in their business or in their photography, or there's like a deeper meaning question along with it. And I've hopefully I've given a lot, but I've also learned a ton of things from the different people that have been in the booths, and just by their genres of photography and the different things they do, the different things they use the products for. It's hopefully I've given as much as I've taken away, because I really feel like I've taken a lot from this.
I was surprised because I've had some sales positions in my history, And I think I sent Matt a message saying, do you want me to study the website or understand, like memorize the sizes or the products or the prices or the specs or things?
You mean you didn't do that?
No, I got told specifically, no, you don't need to do that. And so I felt a little uneasy, like, am I going to be able to answer all the questions? And really it's to be there as a testimonial to what a family, we call White House our family.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So that's what I was trying to express to people the most. And then, like Teresa said, the conversations that happened beyond that were almost like mini mentor sessions. I got to really, like, somebody was comparing a very subpar brand of a product out there, and I because she could sell that for cheaper then. And I said, it isn't about what you pay for the product, it's how you mark it up. And if you sell that product, it's going to rot basically in 2 years. Now you're selling something inferior with your name on it, and in 2 years it's going to be garbage, and you should have just paid a little more for the better product. And I tell my clients, I expect this to be on your wall for 40 years until you're a grandpa. That's the product I can stand behind and try and get that through their head, and then charge appropriately for it. And I think those were the longest conversations I had, were just on sustainable pricing and turning this into a little business session.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, and I told you last night, I've kind of stepped back a couple of times and just listened.
He literally left us in the booth by ourselves for 2 hours today. I'm like,
Okay,
what are you thinking?
Hours. It was more like an hour.
Okay, it was just an hour.
But to hear and to remember, like, when I was in the booth in your position, and how cool of a perspective that really is. Both directions. You know, for you guys to see what we do and to have a glimpse into the lab side of things, and then to watch you help mentor, you know, people that are very interested in moving towards a product-based business. You know, because that, we all know from a sustainability standpoint, that's crucial.
What I liked is, like, so Portrait Masters is a great conference. I think the quality of the attendees here is, like, they are top notch. So more so than trying to make their business successful, I was surprised at how many people want to make their business better. They were looking for, how can I upgrade? What products can I offer that will bring in a little bit more than what I'm making now? How can I get my averages to that next level? And so that was really fun for me, because, hey, I want to do that too. So let's figure this out together. How can we do this? Maybe that's something I can do. Maybe I can share, or you can share with me. So I found that very enlightening.
That's awesome.
And I'll back up. It's Go to the trade show. Thank them for being there. I've said on stage once that I was sponsored, and if you win something, do the right thing with it. Order a sample, and that way you'll get tenfold out of it, because you'll sell it a bunch of times. But all the labs, all the trade shows are how this educational industry, the educational side of our industry operates, by giant sponsors that go to these trade shows and stuff. So it isn't all just buzz through, take a pen and run. It's like, you got to show support to them. And that's kind of where I'm honored to be here and help out. And I hope we boost the revenue and get 100 new clients out of this or something for White House, because it's awesome to be able to support them, because they do so much for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we've always taken a strong position with education. And I know you both are very big fans of that.
Absolutely.
With, on a national level, on a regional level.
Some might say addict.
Yeah. Well, and that's good, because you have advocated and you have led organizations to success, and you've been influential with the PPA, with TCPPA, with individual mentoring, with hosting private workshops, by, helping anybody who needs it. And that is what I consider to be, a big piece of your legacy as a couple, is you've always been there to help support and to grow. You're not secretive.
No.
It's like, we're here to help and share.
Absolutely.
The rising tides.
Yep,
thing.
absolutely.
Try and
Somebody helped us. It's our turn to help somebody else. So, yep.
What one of my very first mentors said to me was, just honor the industry. I will teach you all I know, but just honor the industry. Don't undercut your neighbor. Don't try and undercut the labs. Don't do anything. Just be honorable. And that's honestly what works. If I find somebody in our area growing, I introduce them to the industry, just like was given to me, and encourage them to climb. And things like that. So competition makes everybody better.
Yep.
Yep, I 100% agree, and you guys definitely emulate that.
Thank you, Matt.
You wear it and you show it every day. You don't just talk about it. So I know that we're getting some minutes racked up here, but I do want to touch on before we sign off your recent redesign that we finished for you. So we don't have a ton of time to talk about that, but I do want to share with everybody, if you aren't following along or you haven't subscribed to the WHCC YouTube channel, to make sure and do that, because there are 6 videos out there, I believe there's 6.
I think so.
Of your studio going through a complete redesign. So why don't you guys just take a couple minutes and just kind of share your thoughts on that process and how that has been going so far, because you're right in the middle of your season right now.
Yep.
So let's get a quick update.
So I'm the money person. Nate does the sales, but I'm all about the Benjamins. And I feel like the redesign did not go at all how we thought was going to go when it comes to sales. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just completely different from what we thought. We thought everybody'd be buying those big 40 by 60s we have hanging in the hallway, woohoo, whatever. And it hasn't. However, it's made our clients look at our walls. And the very first sale we had after they were installed was a family sale, and she literally looked at our family gallery wall in our sales room and was like, I want something like that. Now, she didn't, of course, get all of the pieces, but it was easy for her to look at a chunk of it and say, I want that. We had a senior come in this year this was the second child we photographed in that family. So we've already done the son 2 years ago. We did the daughter this year, and she saw the cluster grouping of canvases in our sales room and said, I want that for my daughter. And I thought, well, that's weird. You obviously have a favorite child, but okay, I'll sell that to you. And that was our over 10K sale. So we had our first over 10K sale, which was exciting. But it's just funny how the clients are almost navigating easier, or at least I think so. Nate, you're in the sales room, so you probably maybe have a different view, or...
Yeah, I think it's early in the game, so I'd never come to conclusions yet. But we sold a lot of 20 by 30s in the past. And that's because we had a lot, like an exorbitant amount of 20 by 30. Everywhere you looked was a 20 by 30. There are reasons for that, but now it's a variety of things. And I thought that some of it would be put, like Teresa mentioned, some of it, the bigger pieces would be pulling that average size up. I think what it's doing more is pushing more clusters of things. So our average ticket is indeed up.
Yeah, absolutely.
The 20 by 30s aren't as prevalent, but it's a 16 by 24 next to two 12 by 12 squares, or something like whatever that would be. A little cluster of 3, which is better than a 20 by 30. So people are envisioning things more
in a different way than they would have before, I think.
Yeah. And it's totally, I think the other thing is people are more comfortable with a bigger ticket because, and I hate to say this, if you watch the videos, you might see the word clutter. And my office is a bit...
Yes, I agree.
There was a lot of stuff to look at, and we had the fortune of having a few great mentors walk through, and then Matt, of course, coming through and doing the redesign. And I heard the word clutter a lot. Don't know where to look. There's too much stuff laying around. Clean it all up. And I think that just brought a more... The client is more comfortable in there, and it feels like more like a high-end experience.
Yeah, and literally, as you probably see in the videos, literally in our sales room is just albums and wall art. That's it. There is there's no other things that we sell. There's no image blocks. There's no mini accordions. There's none of that. It's just albums and wall art.
Because all of that stuff we can get up, take a stretch break, walk out, and see that was a proven strategy, and it's worked. And I think everybody's just more comfortable. And it feels, we've also dressed the part when in there, which I think is addressed in the YouTube series. We just kind of treat it like a more high-end experience all around, because we're not buried in this cluttery place that just happened to come together. It just looks more like a complete end-to-end plan.
And Nate will maybe have a session that day where he's wearing shorts and a t-shirt, but he will go downstairs and either shower or change into a dress shirt and a pair of pants so that he looks more the role for the order appointment. Personally, for me, it's a lot more maintenance because I got to go around our building every day, make sure everything looks clean and nice. There's nothing in the corners. It's like, I got to make sure it looks perfect. All the towels are folded nicely and everything. But you're right, Nate. I think they feel like they're being more well taken care of. And I think that's showing with their pocketbook.
Yeah, definitely. And I pitched this out the other night, and I didn't get either one of you to really pick up on it, so I'll say it one more time. Do you think, and I know it's too early in the game, like you said, Nate, but do you think you might be a click or two ahead of the curve on how the perception is and how you're, like you said, you feel like some of the large prints would be like somebody walking through a mall and seeing, large images up and kind of equating that to, this is just me showing you this really cool large image. And then I said back to you, I'm like, well, think about it this way. Restoration Hardware just put one of their massive flagship stores in Edina. There is not a single thing that you can carry out of that store. You have to go in, you have to work with a specific salesperson, go through the whole high-end experience. Everything is massive and it's big and it's just there to look at. And I feel like your studio, style-wise, really follows that. And especially that hallway feels like that.
Yeah. I think we may be coming up to another transition where the clients we have now will need to elevate, or we'll start pulling in more elevated clients, if that makes sense. We'll be pulling in more of that type of clientele. I think we have some now, but they're not all. So I think we're ready for that next tier up.
I think that's true, because when I say it's early in the game, I know a lot of the people we had booked early in the year, a good portion of them were siblings of previous clients. Some of the later pickups in the year, I think it feels like I could come to you in a few months and say, oh yeah, the 40 by 60 isn't just to look at. That's out the door now. And things like that. So I feel like that's where we're headed. And it just, I like the term elevated, and not that the ones we have now aren't.
No, absolutely not. We love all of our clients.
It just feels like the average is going
to
grow. We're growing in maturity as a business and as an experience. That word spreads to the next income tier, or whatever it be. Right. That we're just going to be that experience for them. So
and I think that it'll continue to be a really good case study for somebody or a couple who has a great business already, has a product base schedule, who knows how to sell. You're not changing a million things at once. You just change the design and change the walls. You're not really adapting, or you haven't, at least to my knowledge, the rest.
And we've always approached everything like that. The trends in this industry can be insane. Like, oh my gosh, this new speaker is doing this new thing.
This is the hot new backdrop. This is the hot new product. This is the hot new light.
But sales techniques and product specific, people drop their entire way of doing business to convert over to this way. Full stop. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. And that's not always a good thing, because some of those systems you need to go 100% for them to work. That's the only way they work.
Well, or if you're brand new to the business, it's nice to have a system in place so you at least kind of can jump one step ahead.
Yeah, but I always, everything, lighting techniques, everything, I take the good out of it. Like, how is that going to work with us? But still leave our piece of it
brand
in there.
on it.
Our brand or way of doing business. So even your design, there were a few things that we tweaked and compromised on.
Just knowing what we had sold in the past and what we knew our previous clients would enjoy.
And I think that's just something everybody should do, is just don't blindly run at a plan. Like, analyze it, and especially those that have been doing this long enough that you don't just wildly whip the ship around.
Yeah.
Right.
You wanna slowly, gradually come into it. And that's why I kind of said, like, again, to come back to it, we're early in the game. I think we're transitioning to this. I can't tell you 4 months into it, did it work? Did it not work? I'll tell you next year how it's going again.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you, again, that are listening along, make sure and check out the YouTube videos. There is wonderful conversation in there with both Nate and Teresa, and a ton of knowledge that is available that they were willing to share with you. About sales, about products, just the building in general, the sacrifices that they've made to get to where they're at.
And if you're sick of listening to us, there's a ton of other photographers on the YouTube channel that we have gotten a ton of great information from too. So there's a lot of great information out there.
And more to come.
And not to mention a team of marketing people from White House, and an owner that understands that the marketing piece of this is education
Yeah.
and helping the industry. That none of that comes free. We didn't run
No.
around with an iPhone and record this stuff. There's professionals working behind the scenes. So
We may or may not have had a whole van full of equipment.
May or
that
may not,
we
yes.
loaded in there. Well, from the bottom of from my heart and from our heart at White House and the Handline family, we appreciate you guys and thank you again for all you do for the industry, for us, for traveling with us. This has been a blast.
It's been a blast.
And I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to go get a little dinner
Yes.
and relax my feet for the day. So thank you everybody out there that's joined us. It's been a great conversation. Thank you, Nate and Teresa.